It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. Fear no more. We're pretty sure there won't be a default. Gary, how are you?
We'll get to that in a moment. I want to get to the entertaining stuff. All right?
Mm-hmm.
In the real entertaining stuff.
Right.
And I wish everybody could see the video of this.
Yeah.
John Kirby yesterday being asked a question from a New York Post reporter. John Kirby, White House spokesperson. And this ended everything. This ended the proceedings. Yeah. Here we go.
In the middle of this, there was a Harvard-Harris poll this month that found that 53% of the public, including a fourth of Democrats, believe, quote, Joe Biden was involved with his son in an illegal influence peddling scheme. There's, of course, evidence that the president interacted with his relatives, associates from China, Mexico, Kazakhstan, Russia, and Ukraine. So what do you say to the majority of Americans who believe that the president is himself corrupt?
Wow. Can I take that question?
The president has spoken to this. The president has spoken to this, and there's nothing to these claims.
Do you see the silence, though? I mean, he's just looking, going, goes, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
As if the poll doesn't even exist.
Right. Yeah.
And you hear the laughter. What does the laughter mean?
During the silence, what does the laughter mean? You mean?
Yeah. What does the I was trying to figure out what does the laughter mean? Does the laughter mean nobody in the press is supposed to go here, you know? We know you were at the New York Post, but nobody's supposed to bring this up.
Yeah.
It's if we pretend as if there's no investigation going on whatsoever, that there's no news about President Biden corruption at all. This isn't was it that, or were they just laughing because Kirby, his mind was working at 1,000,000 miles an hour trying to figure out how to come up with some kind of answer.
Bingo.
And he was stalling.
Bingo.
Okay.
They're laughing because of the silence, because of the pause, because there really is no way for them to answer this question except for to deny. There's no corruption. And, if I'm accused of doing something and the media's coming after me for doing that, you won't be able to shut me up in the defense of my innocence. They're running from this for a reason. The FBI is stalling on all of this for a reason. Nobody is jumping out. The liberal media, with all of their contacts on the inside at the FBI, with a document that is not classified, has brought zero leaks to this that would defend Joe Biden.
No. And in fact, the only thing we got yesterday is, and we'll hear from Comer in a little bit, that the FBI did acknowledge the document does exist.
Right.
And that the FBI said that he can look at it, but he can't have it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And Comer said, not good enough. The subpoena says you give it to the committee. We want the committee to see it.
Right. Yep.
Not just me.
Right.
We want the committee to see it.
Right.
So this is going to what I would say is I want both. I'm going to go see it, and I want it presented so I know what it is, but then I want it presented. Then again, are you afraid that if you do that, and I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know, but is he afraid that if he does that, then the grand jury might not hold Wray in contempt because he is attempting to cooperate with them?
I think that's the play by Wray to try and demonstrate throughout all of this I don't think he's doing a good job. But he wouldn't be trying to convince me. You're trying to set up a scenario where a grand jury would look at this ultimately and say, well, no, he did cooperate. I mean, we have to remember that it would be a grand jury if it got to that point, a grand jury in D.C.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in defense of the current liberal president, and really the fact that the current FBI director is a Trump appointee would really have no bearing, because ultimately you're trying to protect a liberal president,
right,
and a grand jury, likely liberal grand jury wouldn't go that far. I think that Wray and probably his boss at the top, Merrick Garland, are looking at this going, yeah, we're golden. We don't really have to do anything. We can demonstrate little things. You can look at it. Now, here's the problem with that play, as you mentioned, where you started. They acknowledge it exists.
Yeah, they acknowledge that the document does exist, and the document does state that.
Right.
The thing I would have done if I was the New York Post reporter there, when he was silent and he goes, wow, and maybe when he just says there's nothing here, and go, okay, then fine. You say there's nothing here at all, no corruption, no corruption at all. Can you tell me what business the Biden family is in to be collecting these millions of dollars from entities tied to foreign governments?
Right.
Since you're willing to answer that there's nothing here. Because
Right.
at that point you said, well, we're not going to get into it. Well, you just got into the discussion. You said there's nothing here.
Yeah.
And now when I ask you a follow-up question that is a legitimate question,
Yeah.
because how many presidents' families or vice presidents' families, former vice presidents' families, have enriched themselves like this Biden family, and the American public deserves answer. So if you wonder why, and we had brought this up, we had brought up the poll when it came out, and then we brought it up again yesterday. I'd said 51, it was 53%, believe that Joe Biden is illegally corrupt. And then it was over 60% that believe Hunter Biden is illegally corrupt with illegal influence peddling, which we laugh at because that means there's like, double figures and people that believe that, the influence, they don't understand influence peddling, obviously,
Right,
because
right,
what they're saying, well, Hunter Biden was involved in illegal influence peddling, but not Joe Biden. Well, do you know what influence peddling is?
Right.
What
Do we have to go back and go over the definition of influence peddling?
Hey, look, Hunter, look, could you get me some crack? Here's $10 million.
Right.
Give me some.
It was
Some crack.
the influence of Hunter, which would only be his connections in drug trade.
Right. What else would it be?
Nobody's interested in this whole paint by numbers thing. You know it's paint by numbers. You know it is. It's a 2. It's a 2, and 2 is green.
Look, if we give you $10 million, will you give us a couple of those beautiful paintings?
Yeah.
That's what it's about. But the fact is, you need to, as a reporter, everyone knows, and that's the thing. Everyone in that room knows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone knows that, what influence peddling is.
Right.
And everybody is concerned with that poll number, including the White House.
Of course. This is, and there it is. I mean, the media during the Obama years, and actually during the 2008 election season after the convention, when Biden was brought on board as the VP candidate, the media did these, and they've done them before. I think they did them before that once or twice, but they really focused on it again then. Joe Biden is one of the poorest members of the Senate. He still takes the train.
Do we have to pay off his college loan?
Watching those, you would think, oh, man, somebody send the guy food stamps.
This just reminded me. I got to find the audio cut that I saw from Schumer yesterday. How horrible it is that Republicans don't want to forgive these college loans.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up here in a little bit, we'll have the Chip Roy comment yesterday. That was really because when I heard Chip Roy, I go, okay, he's bringing up all the points that we have brought up about the debt.
Yeah. Right.
And, when you look at what's, as we said, this thing passes the Senate, it really doesn't mean anything.
No.
And it's like, well, what was it, the CBO saying this is the biggest deficit, biggest debt reduction, well, out of projected debt.
Yeah.
Right.
I
mean, out of projected debt, I mean, and that's because of the unbelievable, incredible increase in spending, record amounts by leaps and bounds over the last couple of years that the Democrats don't want to end. But this doesn't save us.
No, it doesn't. And you and I have talked about it, I think, this week and last, that the GOP, of course, when there's a liberal president, that's when they go back to being fiscal conservatives. I know that there are a handful of true fiscal conservatives still left, maybe one or two if we got down to it. But you think over the years, the GOP has been part of this. Welfare reform was really just tapping the brakes years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a true rollback. It wasn't finding fiscal sanity once and for all. It was none of that. And it was tapping the brakes. This is less than tapping the brakes. This is rolling through a stop sign is what this is. Yeah, I looked both directions. No, there weren't any cars coming, but I didn't stop. And that's exactly where we are. And I'm convinced that if the GOP keeps the House next year, gets the Senate, and then gets the White House, we're going to have the same kind of behavior we've had from them. They'll go back to what they were doing. Well, we have to, and we have to, and we must. There's not going to be any call from within to say, listen, guys, we've got it now.
The thing is, though, the conservatives say, and I'm sure for the conservatives they represent, it's like, yeah, this is, because Chip Roy talked about it, what we're doing to our children and grandchildren is just absolutely unforgivable.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, in order to save it, in order to save the United States fiscally, the majority of Americans, including the majority of Republicans, believe all you have to do is cut foreign aid.
Yeah.
We've said this over and over again, but it's important to say.
Right.
Everybody is ignorant on this.
Right.
Including the majority of Republicans who believe if you just cut foreign aid and wasteful spending, well, then you can, stop, this incredible downhill fiscal path that we're on. And that's not true. If you don't redo somehow Social Security and Medicare, it's impossible to get there.
Right.
It's impossible to get there. And that's, as we stated yesterday, Republicans criticize math with feelings, but the fact is many Republicans have taken this populist meme analysis on our budget saying just cut out the foreign aid and the wasteful spending and we're there. Well, you're not there, and you're not close to being there, and that's just the reality. But the fact is, if Republicans get in charge, the thing is, if they actually voted to do something to reduce Social Security and Medicare, they'd be afraid we're going to be out of office.
Right. Right.
Now, the only thing is, we're getting now within a decade of the fact of what's going to happen at that point when we're 2 years out, and they start saying, seniors get prepared for a 20% cut in your Social Security.
Or more, yeah.
And in Medicare, you're going to have to pay a heck of a lot more than you're paying right now.
Right.
And you're going to have to pay a heck of a lot more.
Yeah, your copays are going to be 50%.
Yeah, your copay is going to be a lot more expensive, and you're going to have to pay for it with a 20% reduction in your Social Security.
Right.
Because at that particular point, you've only got a couple of choices. And the choice is you finance Social Security with massive inflationary debt creation, or you go after benefits, which means either it's a 20% cut across the board, or you move it back 5 years when you can collect, and that's a cut in benefits. And you drastically increase premiums. And nobody wishes to touch that. Just ignore it, as we have been. I remember when I became a talk show host in '89, this was being talked about, the path of Social Security. And it's based on the real numbers, the real math of Social Security from the beginning, when I think it was almost 10-1 putting in as to collection, where it's now 2-point-something to 1.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the math. And if you wish to be delusional, this is where Republicans can't be delusional. I'm talking about the Republican voter.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be delusional and say the math doesn't exist. Well, don't worry, we can do it somehow. Fine. The devil's in the minutia details here.
Someone wrote me and said, "How do we convince people? How do we wake people up from this? If you didn't care before $32 trillion in debt, I don't know what to say to you. I don't know how to convince. I don't know how to tell someone to be passionate about something, to be concerned about something. If you're not concerned by now, you're probably never going to be concerned."
Well, I'll tell you one worry I have coming up next. 866-90-RED-I.
Logging miles during the hot summer months can put a serious strain on you and your truck's health. Did you know pollutants and allergens in the air outside can enter your cab through the HVAC system without you even cracking a window? That's why it's important to check those cabin air filters. Inhaling dirty and polluted air can cause distress if you suffer from allergies or a respiratory illness. Not to mention the distraction dirty cabin air filters can cause by blocking proper airflow to your AC system when you need it most. Breathe easy when the air in your cab is fresh. This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-I on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, the one thing I was thinking is, and last couple of days, some of the figures have come out of the debt, the credit card debt of Americans right now, and the fact that Americans are still spending, but they're spending on credit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And their own personal debt is getting out of control.
Yep.
And they're still spending.
Yeah.
Which is one of the problems, when we look at, inflation and where it's going, that Americans are using the credit card. And so if Americans are using the credit card to record level because COVID money has run out, then Americans aren't concerned with running up the national debt in order to get them what they want, even if it does go after our, even if it does affect, for the most part, future generations.
Well, in an era when we're having a conversation about eliminating college debt, well, then if I run up this debt, then someone will probably come along and suggest that everybody, or that the government pay off my credit card debt. And if they're running up their debt, my debt doesn't matter. And if nobody cares about debt, why should I? And I'll just go until everything breaks. I mean, if you don't care about the national debt and don't care about your personal debt, then it's likely never going to change. And I think even if you were to have a court or if you went through the bankruptcy process and went through it and came out on the other side, all right, fine. They'll just write it off. I mean, I think we still have a significant number of people that say, we can just write it off.
the fourth branch of government. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Well, the House passed the debt ceiling bill yesterday. More Democrats voted for it than Republicans, even though the majorities of both parties voted for it. It was interesting because, I knew that when Hakeem Jeffries came out and said he supported the bill, at that point yesterday, I knew that Democrats were going to vote for it. Yeah. We were just wondering because in the committee, no Democrats voted for it at all.
Right.
And so we were wondering, but the vote got through. Now it goes to the House. Or excuse me, now it goes to the Senate. I know, I saw the Senate leadership yesterday talking about it. McConnell saying, well, they hope to have everything done by Friday or the weekend and get this thing done, depending on how the amendment process goes. I know, for example, Rand Paul says he wants to put in an amendment.
Right, yeah.
And so
if Rand Paul gets started, we may be here until June 5th.
Well, let me predict something. The Rand Paul amendment will not pass the Senate.
I'm guessing you're right on that. I'm just going to throw a dart in the dark and say, bullseye.
We normally don't make predictions, but I want to play. This is Representative Chip Roy from Texas yesterday, making a lot of the same points that we've made over the years on the debt, and specifically he voted against the bill, talking about where we are right now in America when it comes to our fiscal situation.
I thank the chairman, the gentleman from Oklahoma, who is a gentleman, giving me time despite the fact I voted against the rule in the Rules Committee. I respect that. I respect it immensely, so that we can have a full and open debate here on the floor of the House. I listened to the gentleman from Massachusetts wax on, talking about governing. Well, we don't govern, Mr. McGovern. We represent. That's what we're supposed to do anyway, is represent the people of this country. Fed up with a government that is now 40% bigger since the beginning of COVID. A government barreling towards $36 trillion of debt, and an absolute devastating burden on the future of this country, on our children and our grandchildren, who are not going to be able to afford homes, not be able to afford to go to school, not be able to afford food, groceries. Talk about food programs. I don't hear a whole hell of a lot about what we're doing to devastate American families with rampant inflation because we keep spending money we don't have. To my colleagues on this side of the aisle, my beef isn't that I don't understand the struggle with the negotiators against that kind of reasoning. My beef is that you cut a deal that shouldn't have been cut. The fact is, at best, we have a 2-year spending freeze that's full of loopholes and gimmicks that would allow for increased funding for the federal bureaucracy in order to achieve a $4 trillion increase in the debt by January 1 of 2025. $4 trillion. We have permitting reform, which might have some good elements in it. But the problem is you have the Biden administration saying it accelerate implementation of the historic clean energy and environmental justice investments in the Inflation Reduction Act, the very policies destroying the American way of life and making them unable to afford energy and afford their food. We have watered down work requirements. The CBO just said will actually increase the cost of SNAP by $2 billion. A supposed 1% automatic top line reduction in spending at the end of the year that will actually make a Christmas omnibus more likely. A 2% cut to Biden's $80 billion IRS expansion. 2% of that $80 billion expansion. Administrative pay-go, I'm told. We're not going to do the REINS Act. We're not going to constrain the regulatory state. We're going to do a waivable administrative pay-go. Great. We'll pass a bill next week. Yay us. It'll die in the Senate. Why aren't we using this leverage? A complete punt to SCOTUS on the Biden administration's unfair $500 billion student loan bailout, billions in COVID dollars left untouched to fund things like vaccines and COVID-19 testing, and the loss of our biggest leverage points to force Biden to actually secure the southern border. I encourage my colleagues to vote no on the rule and to oppose this legislation.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, he's right on everything. But the problem is that the people where he started with represent, the people that the others represent don't care.
And the other thing, too, is even if he got, as we've said before, a lot of this is politics because, and it's not bad politics. I agree with the politics, and I'm not saying it's bad, because I'm not using the politics term in a bad way. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, if everything that he wanted was reversed and Democrats would go for it, it's still not going to make a difference.
Right.
That's the problem that we face.
That's how big it is. Yeah.
That's how big it is. And so, you look at it. I was looking here at Trump's statement yesterday that heading to Iowa. We will be heading to the great state of Iowa this afternoon for 2 days. I strongly defended and backed ethanol. Ron DeSaster instead of disaster.
Instead of DeSantis and disaster.
Yes.
That's the new nickname.
Has always been strongly against ethanol, just like he voted to cut Social Security and raise the minimum age to 70, obliterate Medicare, and charge everyone a national sales tax of 23%. Remember, that would be also that you would cut the income tax would be gone.
Right.
If you had a national sales tax. And remember, I terminated the worst trade deal in USA history, NAFTA, and replaced it with the best USMCA. Also got China to pay our great farmers $28 billion in damages. Now, you could tear what he's saying apart, as we did, because, number one, the ethanol thing, if Trump believes, as he did before, that we need to give ethanol, we need to buy ethanol, there's no reason to do it except you're buying votes.
Right.
And that's exactly what Trump supporters claim they're against. And we talked about this back in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
When he was blunt. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, you got to be for ethanol.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he's very clear.
Right.
In fact, I think it was Ted Cruz he was going after.
Yeah.
Ted Cruz ended up winning Iowa that year, 2016.
And on Social Security and Medicare, it's easy for any politician to say, just don't do anything. Mm-hmm. Leave it the same. Don't do anything. Fine. You're going to have to pay later on. But if your philosophy is on ethanol, as we stated with Trump in 2016 and again in 2020,
mm-hmm.
if your philosophy is that, and that's the fear that I have of the populism that has invaded the Republican Party. It's not conservatism.
Right.
And we've talked about Trump before with it. USM, on the tariffs where he talks about.
Mm-hmm.
Farmers hated the tariffs.
Right, they did.
The farmers absolutely hated the tariffs and said, don't give us a check.
We don't want the check. We want our trade routes reestablished. We want them back open. We want those long-term deals in place because they were hurting for the longest time, and you don't forget something like that. So the question is, during the primary, who was more likely than to bring about tariffs again? Because if Trump is bragging about the tariff actions that he took, which he is in these comments against DeSantis, he doesn't realize the damage he's done. What he's telling the Iowa farmers is, I'm willing to do that again because it worked. I'm willing to do tariffs again because I believe it worked. I believe you liked it.
On the USMCA and NAFTA, as we said, there isn't much change in it.
No,
that was the biggest thing out of it. Was like, well, it's exactly the same. Some of the things that were changed was automobile parts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and because of what was put in there, part of the escalation that you see in prices of automobiles today, as we said, number one, the increase of cost would make it so you would want to make more auto parts outside of North America, and it would lend the increase in vehicles. And that's one of the things that Trump promoted the most. We're like, well, that's the thing that will increase the cost.
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways, Trump didn't get what he wanted. Trump was always going back and forth between protectionism and capitalism. You saw it when he brought, for example, Larry Kudlow in and Steve Moore in and everything else. And it's like, okay, they're going up against Navarro and the other people that are protectionists, and that debate was going on.
Right.
And thank goodness, for the most part, the capitalist won.
Yeah.
But Trump has been promoting protectionism for a significant period of time, and he's doing it again here. He's talking about the fact that centralized control in these certain areas is what the economy needs in order to succeed.
And if you're sending that message to the Iowa farmers who feel like they got burned, I don't know if he realizes that's the message he's sending, but it's not a good one. That's not what they want to hear. They don't want to hear this idea that tariffs are good. They don't want to go through that again. And ahead of a primary, that's not something you should be promoting.
The overall point I would make, though, is that's exactly what you don't want if you wish to control the budget.
Right.
What Trump is promoting there is the government should be handing out money and should be regulating an economy maybe differently than the Democrats did, but ethanol is right out of the playbook of the most liberal Democrats that you could find.
Well, Al Gore, in the early days of Al Gore, at least when he was running for president, 10 years later, he came back and said, no, I only did that because I was running for president.
Yeah, that he lied. I lied about ethanol.
Yep.
And so the only reason, and Trump was blunt in 2016, well, you know, it's money you hand out money, people vote for it.
It may be a bad thing to do, but you got to do it.
Right.
If you want to win Iowa. And that year he didn't win Iowa. Mm-hmm. The guy who said he would roll back those ethanol mandates over a period of years, now the rollback from Ted Cruz wasn't what conservatives wanted to hear either, because it wasn't direct enough. It wasn't it wasn't fast enough. It was over a period of years. But he did promote rolling back those tariffs, and he ended up winning Iowa.
And so understand, my point would be, I won't speak for you, but my point would be Chip Roy represents a small minority of the Republican Party.
Right.
If you look at the polling numbers for Trump, and it's well known what he has talked about, and he's very blunt as to what he would want to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is why we look at it and say, if Trump's philosophy, if he could do all of that, and the Democrats are the opposition, you're headed towards fiscal Armageddon.
Yeah, because that's it. Right now, the majority of Republican rank and file are not outraged by the national debt.
No, they're not.
And so if you're making campaign promises like that, and you're getting the response and the support in the polls, then it shows that is proof.
Yeah.
That a significant portion of the party does not care about that debt. And if you don't care that we're here, you don't care how we got here, you're just going to keep going. And I think the example of that is the way that individuals right now are spending in their personal lives. Personal debt is going up. They know it's not sustainable, but they keep spending the same way. And unless, as a nation, we make a drastic change, a number of drastic changes, then we're not going to save ourselves from the debt. We're just going to sit here and wait for the crash.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, so that's just the reality of what we are, what we are in right now. And, you've got the Chip Roys, and, that I believe are more interested in actually doing something. But the problem is when it really gets down to it, there are certain things, and that's why we read, Trump's True Social about going to Iowa, that we need to make ethanol. Well, that's exactly what we have said is wrong with everything with energy, and every conservative knows it. You don't sit there and subsidize something that the American public is not asking for.
Yeah, right.
They're not asking for ethanol. No, but we give your taxpayer dollars to the farmers. It makes them happy, and I can get their vote. It's exactly what we're supposed to be against. And that's where the populism comes in the Republican Party. There is the conservative part of Trump that people like, but there's also that populism, economic populism that exists that, thank goodness, he was convinced not to nearly go as far. I wonder if he won a second term, whether he would have people like a Stephen Moore or what's his name? I can't think of his name at the moment here.
Larry Kudlow?
Larry Kudlow.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, they brought them in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Yeah, it makes you wonder who he would surround himself with.
Yep.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today and listen when and where you want. I see Pence and Christie supposed to announce next week. We'll get to that in just a moment. Just so people who may be new listeners, just so you know, now that we're in election time, and we're going to be doing this for the next year and a half, analyzing candidates. We're conservative libertarian. People know what most people who listen to us know where we stand. We don't care whether it's Trump or DeSantis or Christie or Pence. If you move away from being a conservative, if you move away from fiscal responsibility that we need in this country, if you BS, if you lie, we will call you on it.
Yep.
We don't care. And so just knowing that, we understand that people get upset because there are Republicans that buy the narrative, we've talked about this before, that Republicans need to stop lying. Republicans don't need to lie. Democrats have to lie. They can't sell what they believe. Republicans don't. So we don't care. And honestly, don't care if you're upset about it.
No.
We care about the truth more than anything. If you don't, that's on you. And so what we talked about before when we criticized Trump and his latest Truth Social, well, we went after DeSantis last week and was extremely blunt about his failures to open up his campaign correctly and how horrendous it was. And we may get blunt and you may get upset, but we're not wrong.
No, that was a fiasco.
Oh, last week for DeSantis?
Oh.
Yeah.
What a soup show that was.
Yep. So we don't care. And, well, what are you going to do? Well, most likely, as I always have in the past, I vote for the Republican nominee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's the closest to what not perfect, but it's the closest to what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, you never know. I mean, Rand Paul may want to run as an independent.
Yeah.
Chip Roy may say, I'm going to run as an independent.
Right.
But yeah, just so you understand a year and a half out, just so there's no surprises.
Yeah.
We will be we will be extremely critical of people who claim to be conservative and are not.
I'll be critical of that person before and after I vote for them. I think it is.
Yes.
I think
Right.
it's critical. that we do that we hold their feet to the fire. You know, it goes back to the very beginning. George W. Bush. There were times when I thought back at the old place we were going to go downstairs at 5 a.m. and there was going to be an angry mob of Republicans at our door because of our criticism of George W. Bush.
Then there was the Tom DeLay.
Oh, yeah.
There was the Tom DeLay night.
What we call the Tom DeLay incident. And it's not the one you're thinking of on Dancing with the Stars.
No.
It's
we had just started working together, too.
Yeah.
I believe it was like August of 2005.
Well, I'm thinking new guy is, well, he's probably going to, he's probably going to go down. He's probably going to hit the floor at some point, and there's not a brain explosion defibrillator in the building. I don't even know if one exists.
It's when Republicans had complete charge, and when the conservatives were stating that this budget is just unacceptable. It's what we've dealt with before when Republicans are in charge, and it's like, okay, you have the ability to do it, and then Tom DeLay came out and said conservatives in the Republican Party, and he was viewed as a conservative.
Yeah.
That conservatives need to shut up because we've cut the budget as far as we can go.
Oy.
And when he said that, I mean, that was such BS.
Yeah.
Such a huge, I mean, that was a BSer that was one of the top BSers of all time from a Republican.
Yeah.
And I was a little upset that night. And we had just been working together for a month, and I think you looked at me like, oh, God. Man, I hope he doesn't stay around long.
Well,
18 years later.
18 years later. Nothing has changed. No, but we always get that, and we have from the beginning, that feedback. Well, you don't understand what they're trying to say. What they're trying to do is no. If you want to buy into that or reason that way, then that's your choice. Go ahead. But I'm not going to do that. And you and I have been doing this long enough to know how the game is played. If Trump believed he could win Iowa and end ethanol mandates, then, of course, he would be pandering to the conservative base of the GOP, saying we got to end these mandates, and I'm still going to win Iowa or whatever. It actually happened with Ted Cruz, but but the game isn't that. And he actually, in 2016, he was saying it. He was saying it.
Yeah, he was.
If you want to win Iowa, you're going to have to essentially. You're going to have to pander to the ethanol farmers. Now, it didn't work for him, but typically that's what you have to do. I mean, that's what in the past you had to do. It changes, though, for someone who has already been president and who imposed tariffs. And those farmers, other farmers, not ethanol farmers necessarily, but other farmers, were hurting as a result of those tariffs. That's the big. It's not even an elephant in the living room. It's just the truth.
You know, the funny thing is, I haven't seen. Now, this was yesterday when he wrote it. I haven't seen a lot of conservatives yet in the Republican Party come out. Seemed like conservatives were more angry yesterday at Trump going after Kayleigh McEnany.
Yeah. Yeah.
You saw that. I mean, there was a bunch of, that was back. Conservatives were furious. It's like one of the most loyal, because he called her milquetoast. She was on, and I don't know what poll she was looking at, but he just went off on her. It's like, she's one of the most loyal people in your administration ever.
Yeah.
You're going after her?
Right.
For at the minimum, maybe she misspoke, but she's been one of your most loyal supporters, and you just lost it with her.
Yeah.
And it was just like, wow. And again, those things, whatever. I mean, we know the vast majority of people that work for Trump are no longer loyal to Trump.
Right.
There are some that are left, but they're the minority. The vast majority now are not Trump supporters who worked for him.
And loyalty is a two-way street.
Yeah. And so, like I said, though, I mean, just generally, this is just about, how we run the show. We're not going to be like what happened to Fox News. We're not going to tell you one thing on the air and be saying something else off the air.
Right.
We're not going to do that.
Right.
And we're not going to BS you.
Right.
And if you get angry because we tell the truth, we don't care.
Right.
We just don't care.
Like the thing you were saying about our great station managers off the air, I would never repeat that on the air. But it's something you... Station manager wakes up. What did they say about me? No, I mean, it doesn't do any good. I'm not here to promote me. We're here to have a conversation.
Yeah. And I'm not, I like to be liked, but I'm not here to be liked.
Yeah. Yeah. If it happens along the way, that's kind of nice.
Right.
If it doesn't, okay. But I can't change that because I'm not going to change how I act in order for people to like me.
Right. And I go back to the Van Zandt lyrics from the Van Zandt brothers, the country band.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I'm not.
Right.
It's that simple.
Right.
We're not going to lie, and we're not going to. I've dealt with this from since '89 when I became a talk show host, and it's you're supposed to go along with the Republicans on it because the Democrats do it. You need to do it. So the Democrats lie. You have to lie too. Sorry, no. I'm doing the opposite of what the Democrats do.
Yeah, I don't have any interest in that.
And I'm not going to promote a narrative. I'm not going to BS. I'm not going to let something just slide by.
No.
And so, it's that it's that simple. The one thing that I always wanted to do, and I believe it's probably why we worked out so well, because we were put together. Bob Schomper decided, hey, I think those two guys would work together, could work well together. Mm-hmm. I've never picked his brain as to why he thought that.
I think he lost a bet.
But you believe the same way that I do, and being a conservative / libertarian, is we've talked about a lot. I'm completely autonomous. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's one of I wish to be completely autonomous, and so do you.
Yeah.
I want to be judged as an individual. I don't want to be judged by the party that I vote for. Now, 99.999999% of the time. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be judged by that. It happens that they are the closest to what I believe. But do I embrace it all? No, and I'll tell you. And I don't want to be, you're really thought well of in Republican circles. That's fine if they're saying because it's the truth. But if it's because I parrot their narrative that I don't necessarily agree with, then I don't want that.
Well, I mean, I don't see any use for it.
No. Well, there's plenty of media to do that. We're the one media that's not going to do it.
Yeah, it's the game of, especially today, you could sit and make things up and lie and do everything, put on a front in order to be liked. The moment you throw out something that is not liked, it all ends. And why is that? Well, it's just the way it is. We know full well we say a lot of things that people don't like. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to sit here and try and earn somebody's adoration by changing what I believe politically or
but it's also
in any other situation.
It's also not because of the so-called independent. That we're independent, we see good from both sides. No, we're conservative libertarian.
Well, that's the other thing that we get too. You guys aren't left or right. Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we're right.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I don't have any loyalty to a party.
No, but our anger comes when Republicans aren't conservative.
Exactly.
You know, it's not that we see both sides of it. No, we see the conservative libertarian side of it.
Right.
We're old enough and experienced enough and been around long enough to understand, what works and what promotes freedom, liberty, and autonomy of the individual and respect of the individual. Mm-hmm. And we've gone with that.
Yeah.
And I'll die with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I
don't care if you have an R, a D, an I, or an S. Can't forget about Bernie Sanders.
Oh, yeah.
We don't care.
Yeah.
If, you don't subscribe to that and you pretend you do, that hypocrisy will get us angry.
By the way, S stands for socialism, not stupid. Although, you could say socialism is stupid.
Yeah, so Pence and Christie are in, just what everybody has been waiting for. All right, that's a lie. I don't tell the truth when I'm being sarcastic.
There are already endorsements, though, coming in for Mike Pence. I was surprised. Marge's Magic Bridge Club, who meets every Tuesday, they're in.
866-90 Red Eye.
Leased owner-operators should be aware of 4 common revenue myths, lest you fall into the trap of mistaking revenue for profit. Myth 1, concentrate on increasing revenue because costs will take care of themselves. This is not true, as costs are fundamental to the profit equation and the area where owners exert the most control to improve. Myth 2, more revenue per mile is the answer to all problems. Though carrier pay packages differ in structure, revenue per mile really doesn't change much from company to company, but there can be a big difference in miles, overall gross revenue, reimbursements, and fees. Myth 3, all you have to do to be successful is run a lot of miles. In reality, revenue is only half of the profit equation. Costs are the other half. It's possible to generate a lot of revenue, yet spend $1.10 to make every dollar. Myth 4, you can tell how well you're doing by the size of your settlement check. The settlement check is only a part of the success picture. Miles driven, loads hauled, conditions, mechanical problems, time off, and especially costs all have to be considered. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Shell Rotella. Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Tons of articles out there yesterday just on energy and where we're going, and the something that we've talked about a lot. And I'm very pleased to see that for some reason yesterday there seemed to be a number of articles, talking about number one where California was going. I'm doing this from memory here. I don't have it in front of me, but James Freeman, contributor to the Wall Street Journal, was talking about the fact of an Associated Press article that was admitting that, things work good for California until it gets hot.
Right.
And talked about, that and the Associated Press article was pretty blunt, saying, they go to diesel generators when they need the extra power. And they talked about the fact of the other things that they wish to do in order to shore up more is going to put electricity prices through the roof.
Right.
And they mentioned the fact that contradicts what the president said, is that it's going to be economically beneficial to go to alternative forms of energy. Well, no, it's not. Not if it skyrockets, doubles, triples, or quadruples in price. That isn't economically beneficial to anyone. And so that was an Associated Press article, but just other analysis that's being done out there. Just a couple of I just saw one headline here in the last little bit. Here's one. Degrowth is suicidal ideology. That's the one thing on climate change that they talk about.
Yeah.
Biden's Green New Deal will melt the U.S. Electric grid. Now, that was Senator Mark Wayne Mullen on a Fox News thing, but also that was that was an op-ed piece. Mm-hmm. But just a number of articles out there yesterday that talking about that, which I thought, okay, that's good. Good to see that.
Good conversation to have.
Yeah.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. I forgot whether I got an email or was somebody who tweeted out and said, hey, did you see about Chick-fil-A? Hey, I've been boycotting them for the last 7 years. I have type 2 diabetes, and their stuff has too much carbs.
They do have grilled chicken.
Doesn't matter. It's the fries and the bread.
And the self-control.
And exactly. I mean, that's and it's the shake with the cherry on top.
Wow. Yeah.
That
you were going to go full on then.
And that's one thing that really killed me was my love of chocolate shakes and chocolate malts.
Yeah.
And the one that I like when I go back to Buffalo, a place called Anderson's. That's Anderson's custard.
Yeah, right.
And I used to get the extra large chocolate malt.
Mm-hmm. That's
got to have like 300 grams of carbs in just the one shake.
Yeah.
But the story that had come out the other day that they practice DEI in their human resources department. And at the same time, though, in their human resources mission statement, it's about being Christian in it. And so there's been some questions asked. I think it was the Daily Caller that wrote to them and said, "Here's the question: it doesn't matter whether you call it DEI. It matters. Do you hire the best candidate?"
Mm-hmm.
And I think they wrote something like that. Do you hire the best candidate, or do you hire based on race or any other factors? And they hadn't heard back at that point. You and I, and this is something we really haven't talked about, but I think it's important just to inform people of, the DEI, you look at it, you go, the critical race theory, the liberal transgender activist movement. Is your company going to force you to believe in something that you don't believe in? Right?
Right, yeah.
And what we have seen is that the fact of over the last couple of years, there are companies, not all, but there are companies, and I believe part of the reason is because they're afraid of litigation, that still call, what their human resources departments are promoting DEI, but it isn't critical race theory anymore. And it's not the liberal transgender activist movement or forcing you to do anything because they know that the litigation that could come from current law of discrimination could come back to haunt them.
Mm-hmm.
For example, there are many companies now in their DEI which is saying, oh, yeah, diversity, equity, and inclusion means that you should, when you look for a job, go for the widest number of people that exist out there.
Mm-hmm.
And you should look for people of different colors and religions and nationalities because diversity is good. But when it comes to picking who you choose to work for your company, you should be picking the best candidate.
Mm-hmm.
We've actually seen that in different DEIs coming from human resources. And we believe part of that is because of the, litigious society, or the possible federal litigation, because you can't sit there and say, I hired somebody because of this.
Yeah.
And I rejected you because of your skin color, whether you're white or not. And I think that even though that's what the Democrats and the left are pushing, that isn't how it's written in federal law.
No.
And so just so you know, so that question was asked to Chick-fil-A, and I don't know if the Daily Caller got an answer. I didn't see that anywhere. And the Chick-fil-A thing sort of died over the last day. Did you notice that?
Yeah, it didn't go very far.
It really didn't go. Yeah, I didn't see it go far at all, because that's the question. It's not whether, and so I believe there's an evolution in there. I mean, it's really insane.
Well,
it's insane the way that it was just a couple of years ago because of the summer of 2020 and how, companies now, sports leagues, oops.
Yeah.
Well, except maybe for the Dodgers.
Yeah. Their DEI page at Chick-fil-A has been up since last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not.
It's not. If they were presenting it in a different way, I think it would probably have a bigger backlash. Let's just say they put a message on their cups. Right? They decided to put whatever on their cup representing whatever.
Yes.
Then that would change things.
Mm-hmm.
If they put huge signs in their window, that would change things. I mentioned on the whole, I guess we can call it now a onesie controversy. People without kids are going, what is a onesie? But the whole onesie controversy, there are other major stores that have had children's clothing representing LGBTQ. That's and major national chains have had it. I've seen it at and it differs in its presentation. I've seen it at Walmart. I've seen it at other stores long before the Target thing came to the surface. And it wasn't necessarily that again, what Target did or put the offering just on a display. They made it a prominent presentation in their store. And so it was essentially saying, this is who we are, like us or don't. It was a challenge is how people received that. When you present it that way, it is a challenge. If Chick-fil-A were to put this on their products, on their packaging, on their the posters in their windows, you would have a much different scenario. Because people would be looking at that going, okay, well now you're saying that if we come here, we're a part of whatever it is that you're going to make as a part of your mission statement. And then you would have people deciding whether or not they were going to participate in patronizing that establishment any further on a greater basis. I mean, that's just the way it falls out with with anything. If it's something on their company website, all right. The whole DEI thing, is it a joke? It is a joke. But the fact of the matter is that there's this growing, calling for these corporations by the activists to say, hey, you need to have your own parade in honor of us. It used to be, we want to have a parade, you need to tolerate it. Then it was, so you need to let us have our parade. Then it was, you need to be a part of our parade. Now it's, you need to have your own parade for us. It's not the way things work. But they think it is, and some corporations believe that's a good thing. In fact, the CEO of Target. No, we believe being woke is a good thing. It's good for business. You don't actually believe that. And the proof is how you handled the whole onesie thing. So
that's a great point.
You know, it's not. It's what happens with Chick-fil-A. I mean, it's like okay, it's a company's going to make their decision, and we'll see. By the way, if they change their policy or not, and who knows? Maybe there's something that triggers a bigger response from the anti-woke folks, where you have a bigger a boycott, and it starts to, Bud Light them. So if you get into that situation, well, it's not good. It's not going to reverse anytime soon, and that's going to be the problem.
Well,
I don't know where it's going from.
Look, most Americans, understand that any business that they deal with may have different viewpoints than they hold. That's not what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you just hold different viewpoints. Therefore, I am not going to be your customer. What's going on here specifically, as we have stated overall, is the fact that the LGBTQ, which we call, it should be the LL, which is the liberal LGBTQ, because we've heard from conservative CLGBTQ that have said, we don't agree with what the whole child thing. We don't agree with the transgender. We don't like the fact that our movement has been taken over by transgenders. So we know, and they have let us know we can't say anything. We can't be public on this. You think the wrath is out there for just, others try being gay and saying, excuse me, we shouldn't be teaching sexualized content to 5-year-olds, irrespective of what that sexualized content is. None of it should go. That's perverts are promoting that.
Mm-hmm.
This is not about conservatives, MAGA people, telling other adults how to live their life. This is about wanting to brainwash children.
Mm-hmm.
This is about wanting to defy biology. This is about wanting to get rid of the importance of biological women and give them their opportunity and being fair on the sports fields. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
And it's about the intimidation that has existed to destroy people's lives if you don't adhere to the insanity of the liberal activist transgender movement in this country. That's what it's about.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, just going over like the DEI page here at Chick-fil-A. Commitment in action throughout our business. Number one, recruiting top-tier talent. Well, you would hope that would be the case in any business. Next, providing access to education, providing scholarship for team members. Okay, that's a recruiting and retention tool. A lot of companies do that. What I'm pointing out here is so far these items aren't exclusive to the whole DEI thing. They've been in practice in business just about everywhere. Engaging through Chick-fil-A community groups. Well, again, that's about being a good steward in your own community. That's something that was going on before DEI. So you may try and fold it into it. It's like the whole green energy thing. Well, if you put insulation in, that's green energy. No, it's not. We've been doing insulation for a long time. Fostering diverse supplier partnerships. That's good for any business. You have to diversify your supply chain so that you don't run out of supplies. These are things that aren't exclusive to DEI. They may want them to be, but they're not.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, looking at I was reading some analysis on the Target situation, and they say, you know, not only, you know, it started out on the right, and now what's really moving that forward is the left not wanting to go to Target because of this. And that's the thing when you get involved in a controversial issue, when you try to back off. Also saw an interesting article written about, you know, just about Bud Light saying, you know, there may be other products that would be sold that it wouldn't be that immediate, but beer is real easy. You go to get beer, there's another one right there. You can grab it. It's the same thing. It's beer. That there are certain products that are so widely available that, you know, where you have such a huge choice when you walk in that they need to be even more concerned about endorsing anything that is controversial.
Yeah, because buying another brand of beer does not ruin your night.
Right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Listen when and where you want. Well, the investigation into Joe Biden and Hunter Biden continues. James Comer was on Fox News last night, and he had a call with Director Wray. This is really interesting because some new stuff that I just learned listening to this audio cut that wasn't even in things that I had read yesterday as he talked to Sean Hannity on Fox News about the phone call and about the document that exists that alleges that Joe Biden committed bribery. Here's part of what Comer had to say last night.
To answer that question, Sean, he offered us the opportunity to come look at it in a private shift, but he was going to redact it. My experience with getting documents from the FBI when they're redacted, it's all black lines. They don't show anything. But I'm going to say on this show what we told Director Wray, what Senator Grassley told Director Wray. He and I have already seen the 1023 form. We knew what was in the 1023 form. Until we told Director Wray that, he never even admitted that the form existed. So the level of confidence that we have with Director Wray only went down. It only declined throughout the conversation. So we will go there and look at the redacted document, but we know what's in the document. And the reason we find this allegation credible, not only because of the credibility of the whistleblower, but because we've seen a pattern of Joe Biden, when he was vice president, leaving a country after he talks about foreign aid and foreign policy, and his family members start receiving payments from that company through shell companies that are then laundered down to Biden family members. So there is a pattern of behavior. And we saw that in Romania, we've seen that in China, we've seen that in other countries, that would suggest that this allegation has merit.
Now, see, I didn't know that. I didn't know that he and Grassley actually have seen it had to be a copy of the document.
It's what we asked before.
Yeah.
How do they know that it exists? How do they know what is in the document? Are they just repeating what the whistleblower is saying, or have they seen a copy? And now we know. They've seen it.
I'll just state what he said. They saw the document, but it had to be a copy if they got it from the whistleblower.
Right.
And since it's not classified and you're going through the whistleblower process, that's the evidence that you wish to present in order to give you credibility as a whistleblower.
Yeah, the preservation of that evidence is critical. Because if the whistleblower showed up and said, I've seen it, it exists, and then all of a sudden it's destroyed and it doesn't exist, then you've got a problem. Then the whistleblower, all credibility is gone, because then at that point you can't prove it.
Now, what's going to be interesting is, since he's offered it to him, they're going to redact it. What will be interesting is from...
Yeah,
he's going to be able to see what they redacted out of it.
He'll know what they're trying to hide.
Which would then be the fact that they're redacting stuff, that they're redacting the things that may make Joe Biden look more guilty.
Right.
And therefore you have more evidence of the FBI protecting the president instead of investigating the president.
Well,
which is why if I'm I almost said Comey because I'm saying Comer. If I'm Ray, I'm wondering if Ray's like, oh, I didn't know they saw it. I don't know if I want to offer it to them now to go see.
Well, there's a totally different back and forth in the making.
Yeah.
Because the back and forth now is you get the document, you don't get the document. You can see the document, you don't get to take the document. You don't get a copy of the document. Well, now it's, this is redacted, and it's what shows, it is the evidence, it's the entire point of the whistleblower coming forward.
I want full transparency. I want to hear what this phone call sounded like.
Director Wray, can I help you? Yeah, we want to see the document. How about no? I think it sounded something like that. But this is, they know exactly what they're doing. I think, Ray, if it turns out, if we hear back from Comer and or Grassley that, look, the redactions are the evidence. The redactions cover the evidence, and outside the reactions or redactions, there's nothing there. It doesn't show anything. But if you take those redactions away, it exposes exactly what the claim is of the whistleblower. It is the evidence. Well, if you're Director Wray, you know you're setting up that back and forth, which could take a very, very, very long time. If your intent is to stall, that's one more way you stall. You're not going to turn over the document. They're going to see it. They're going to clearly, we believe that it stands to reason they're going to see what they redacted and be able to determine how critical those redactions are. Well, this is the cat and mouse that is going to be this entire mess.
Yeah, to me, that was pretty interesting where he said, until we told him we've already seen the document, he never acknowledged the document existed.
Yeah.
Now, he never denied.
Well,
but now he's acknowledging.
So
now you've got unless the FBI, well, when did he say this last night? Then the FBI tomorrow morning, because they need to get their proper sleep in order to come up with the next lie.
Sure.
They would come out and say, no, we didn't acknowledge that the document exists.
Right.
But it's very tough to do so because then the Republicans call you before Congress and ask you to say the same thing under oath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When they've seen it. Wow.
Well, and so then you look at it and say, okay, the other possibility is that now Wray if he's been told, or now he knows that they've seen it. Because in that conversation, you can't just say you've seen it. I would think you would want to float something to Wray that shows very clearly that you have seen it. Because Director Wray knows what's in the document. Right now, it's probably one of the most critical documents at the FBI, and all of the brass knows everything about that document. So it wouldn't surprise me if Comer said, listen, during the phone call, here's what's in it, and we know it, we've seen it. So you had no choice, if you're Director Wray, but to acknowledge that it exists and then say, okay, well, you can come over and see it. Well, see, now you know you're playing a game. I don't need to come see it. I've seen it. We're asking for possession of this document. Period. Man, what's in this document?
Yeah, it's.
I mean, seriously, what is in this document? Because think about this. Nobody is stepping out saying, listen, this ain't true. And, hey, if they want the document, they can have the document. The document's actually going to determine that or prove that the president is innocent of what the whistleblower is alleging.
Well, I think the reason you actually, because he said they're going to go look at the document, even though it's Comey.
Right.
Wray said. Sorry, I've seen
the other one.
Comey's name's been in the headlines lately. He's been talking, but here's the reasons you want to see it is because you want to make sure, hey, okay, this is the 1023 we have. Okay, it's the same thing. All right, we can see it. Okay, this is written here. All right, and then the next thing is, what did they redact?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, there are two, or maybe a few reasons. You also want to establish credibility or reestablish credibility of the whistleblower. I mean, you're going to, in the public, you're going to say we believe the whistleblower, and up to a point there is no reason not to believe the whistleblower. You're going to just have to, because you're going to have to go through the process in order to determine if whether or not the allegations are true. So part of that is kind of double checking. Now, here's a question. You show up, and it's vastly different even outside the redactions. We don't have to go back too far to demonstrate that documents have been changed.
No.
At the FBI.
No, we know that, yes.
And that would be the first thing I would want to know. Has this been altered? Because, you're kind of in the middle. If you're Comer and Grassley, you're in a position if you show up and you see the document, and even outside the redactions, it's different. Then your first question is, my first go-to would be to have a suspicion against the brass at the FBI, just based on the history in recent years. of that kind of behavior going on at the FBI. But you also have to keep in mind, and the possibility on the table, about the credibility of the whistleblower. But you certainly want to jive the two, and your best chance of doing that is getting in front of that document. Your best chance at doing that is getting the actual document. But I would love to see that. Man, I'm dying to know what is in that document.
Well, you saw the CBS story yesterday about the number of whistleblowers. In fact, we'll get to that coming up. The Catherine Herridge story that had come out. We'll read that to you because that shows you, because now CBS is starting to cover it, which we said when you get to a certain point, the media will start covering it. When you realize, and I'm amazed it hasn't happened already, because the mainstream media does not want Biden as president. The only problem is they know next up is Kamala Harris. Did you see that one actor that did the video? Can't think it was on Dawson's Creek or whatever. I can't think of the guy's name. Going crazy that Biden will not hold primary debates. Saying this is completely unacceptable that 80-year-old man, that obviously is having cognitive problems, is going to be running for president of the United States, and he can't even answer. Everything he said is exactly what conservatives have said about the president. It's pretty mind-boggling. But we'll have more coming up. 866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, CBS had this story. They were doing it yesterday, but they came out with it late on the 30th. Multiple Justice Department whistleblowers have come forward to Republican Senator Chuck Grassley as part of his ongoing investigation into the Biden family business practices, according to three sources familiar with the matter, including a former Justice Department tax official. The sources told CBS News the whistleblower disclosures raised concerns about the Hunter Biden investigation, with allegations including irregular handling of evidence and a claim that standard investigatory procedures were not being followed, allegedly hindering the probe's progress. More specifically, whistleblowers said that during the FBI investigation, derogatory evidence related to President Biden's son, Hunter Biden, was wrongly labeled as disinformation when it could or had already been verified. In some cases, they claimed derogatory evidence was placed in highly restricted systems that prevented other FBI investigators from reviewing it in the course of their related work. So they had evidence. By the way, is that not obstruction of justice? If there's an investigation going on and the higher-ups are hiding, isn't that obstruction of justice?
Yeah, it would be, depending on, I guess, who's conducting the investigation. But
In response to CBS News, the FBI said it had no comment. They didn't deny it.
See, this is the problem. This is, again, goes back to what we've been saying from day one. Remember when it hit? We were like, okay, we'll give it a day or two, right? And see if the denial comes out. And then nothing. And then nothing. And it's like, whoa, you're not even going to try and step in front of this. Well, the reason is because you can't. Because who would try and jump out in front of it? If you're officially involved and you try and do that, then you risk obstruction. If you're not, then you risk, of course, in the media, credibility, if the left media even still cares about that. But if they're looking at what could possibly be a massive story, listen, Catherine Herridge at CBS, we've wondered how that works, having an actual journalist involved over there at CBS. But if they pursue a story like this, the mainstream media did not totally ignore this story. But also something that we didn't see is the leaks from within that would have stepped out in front of it for the president, in defense of the president. And with so many activists in newsrooms, they've got so many contacts at the FBI, we would have heard something. Well, an inside source says this is all bogus. It doesn't exist, that there was a rift between the whistleblower and management from the beginning and blah, 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 whatever it is.
In response to CBS News, the FBI said it had no comment. One of the reasons why? Because if they say this is not true, then when Wray is before the House, they will ask him, the FBI said it is not true.
Right.
Is that true?
Right. Exactly.
Under oath.
Right. I mean, the best you can do is no comment.
John Kirby can lie all day for the president. The president can lie all day.
Right.
They're not going to be in front of Congress where they're under oath having to ask it, or being asked a question, excuse me. A spokesman for Grassley said the senator has a long history of protecting whistleblowers regardless of political ideology, and added that his investigation into the Biden's family foreign business dealings, which began in 2019 in his capacity as a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, continues to turn up new information. That's a quote. So there you go. So CBS is on it. You can't ignore, you and I talked about Kirby being asked the absolute direct question about, the Harvard-Harris poll last week that we had brought you that showed 53% of Americans believe that Joe Biden was involved in illegal political influence activities.
Right.
And he was quiet for a while, just looking at the reporter, and then laughter started.
Yeah.
Wow.
Consider yourself canceled if you don't listen nightly. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Sorry. 866-90 Red Eye if you'd like to get in to the show today. Good morning. Well, we're ready to Thursday, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's what happens when you have a
We're all ready to
work
June.
Week. I have not been able to keep my days straight at all this week.
Yeah.
Now, the good thing is I'm thinking right now it's Wednesday when it's actually Thursday. So that's the good part about it. I do want to play this audio here. I've got it set up here quickly. We led the show with it, but now that we're actually talking about, the whole Biden family corruption and what's going on in the investigation. This question was asked by a New York Post reporter yesterday to John Kirby. It's really interesting because you can see that they don't want to answer this question.
Yeah.
And Kirby's just sort of looking at the reporter when he asked the question. And there's a long, long pause. Here we go.
In the middle of this, there was a Harvard-Harris poll this month that found that 53% of the public, including a fourth of Democrats, believe, quote, Joe Biden was involved with his son in an illegal influence peddling scheme. There's, of course, evidence that the president interacted with his relatives, associates from China, Mexico, Kazakhstan, Russia, and Ukraine. So what do you say to the majority of Americans who believe that the president is himself corrupt?
Okay, that she did say it. He says, wow. Karine Jean-Pierre says, Jesus.
Yeah.
I saw an article written on that, yet I hadn't listened close enough, and you can hear her. In fact, let's just go back a couple of seconds in the audio cut. You listen very, 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 very closely. I promise I won't turn the volume up super high so it blows your ears out, especially if you're listening on your headphones at work, or you're laying in bed and listening on your headphones. Here we go. All right.
So what do you say to the majority of Americans who believe that the president is himself corrupt?
Wow. Hear that right after?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were upset that question was being asked. And let's just hear the rest of it here. Here we go. Play the rest of it here.
Can I take that question?
The president has spoken to this. The president has spoken to this, and there's nothing to these claims. And
the middle.
That was so weak.
Yeah. But it was the pause.
Yeah.
You know, you think about it, they should have just answered the question, there's nothing to it, and moved on. By pausing like this, by her saying that.
Yeah. It made it so much worse.
Yeah. It made it, because it added drama.
Yeah.
It added, instead of just saying, no, the president's addressed it. Next.
Right. The president is innocent. That's garbage. Next question.
Yeah. You don't even when they go to the point, well, there's nothing to this. Well, there is something to it. The polls show there's something to it.
Mm-hmm.
The American public, is the American public off in some way?
Right. Are they all just delusional?
Yeah. And that goes back, by the way, the Harvard Harris poll, I believe, is the Mark Penn poll. He's a Democrat pollster.
Yeah.
Let me just see here. It says a White House spokesman was left speechless after he was asked about a poll involving Joe Biden. During a press briefing on Wednesday, New York Post Steve Nelson noted there was a Harvard Harris poll this month that found 53% of the public, including a fourth of Democrats, believe Joe Biden was involved with his son in an illegal influence peddling scheme. What do you have to say to the majority of Americans who believe that the president himself is corrupt? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Said White House National Security Coordinator John Kirby responded before apparently struggling to find the words to respond for several seconds. The president has spoken to this, and there's nothing to these claims, as he said. Wow, there's just
and how you don't push back as really it should feel like instinct. The president is innocent. Stop it.
Now, the interesting thing is it found, and we did this poll when it came out, but it found 63% of respondents said they believe President Biden's son, Hunter, was involved in illegal influence peddling. And on that case, 43% of Democrats, 83% of Republicans, and 65% of independents said they believe that to be the case.
This clearly shows you the level of disinformation in today's society. Next question. How hard is that job? It's not that hard. And this is the problem.
And you weren't prepared for that question coming up.
Right.
But it was Karine, the British media picked up that Karine Jean-Pierre said, Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, like,
right.
But you think about that, and now that it's out, she said that first, and then it was wow. By the way, I'm not being blasphemous. I'm just quoting what she said for news purposes, for full transparency. But I think it was a Daily Mail UK that picked up it, and the headline is in quotes, Jesus. White House responds to question about polls showing the majority of Americans believe that Joe Biden was involved in illegal influence peddling.
Yeah. By the way, for the record, there is zero reason to believe she was praying in that moment. Just to clarify, in case you're wondering.
Now, the interesting thing is 63% of respondents, and we've addressed this, but this is really, really important because it shows that 43% of Democrats believe that Hunter Biden was involved in illegal influence peddling. Well, what are they getting from Hunter Biden? What did they get from Hunter Biden? these foreign governments wanted to influence Hunter Biden. Why? Cheaper crack?
Yeah, right.
Well, what were they looking for? He can't do anything for them. What can he do for them? Why would they pay him millions of dollars? And so that shows 43% of Democrats. That's a huge number. That means it doesn't take much to go up to them and say, what were they getting from Hunter?
Yeah, right.
Oh, I don't know. But you believe he was involved in illegal influence peddling. What could have he given them? Because in order to be involved in illegal influence peddling, it's got to be a bribe. It's got to be a quid pro quo. What possibly could Hunter Biden have to offer them? And that's where, they can't defend it. They know. Those 17% of Democrats that believe Hunter Biden was involved in illegal influence peddling, but not Joe Biden, it's not a huge leap to convince them, or they may already know because they know how influence peddling works, and they just don't want to admit it. And this is the problem the White House has, and it's out there now, and now that, like I said, the drama in that audio cut is what's going to drive this story even bigger.
Yeah.
Because that was basically a shock. Like, we can't believe you asked a question, which is the blue whale pod in the living room.
Right.
How dare you ask a question?
How dare you breach?
Yeah.
There is a clear levee that we have built here, and now the levee is broke with your question. How dare you?
And that's the problem. There's no way. There is no indication that this is going in any other direction, is there? You've already have, in a Democrat poll, half of registered voters who believe that the president was involved in illegal influence peddling, which means they believe he took a bribe.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they don't understand. Let me say that again. They may not understand influence peddling. They may just think that getting the money itself is illegal.
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
Yeah, some may.
Yeah. I think that's a good
if you
theory.
listen to us, we have but maybe they do, because remember, the Democrats have said he did nothing wrong. Nobody said he's broken any laws whatsoever. Yet the public believes he has.
Right.
Even including a significant number of Democrats.
Right.
And so they believe that Hunter Biden has broken the law. And it's been said by Democrats, the talking points are, they broke no law. They can take the money. They broke no law.
Yeah.
Look, Trump family takes money for their business. This is the Biden family business, which is
what?
And then you lose it at that point, because they aren't in any business. So why is somebody paying them millions of dollars? And that's why it's viewed as corruption.
Yeah.
Even if there's nothing illegal done, because the perception is it's an unacceptable perception.
Yeah.
We would be doing nothing wrong if we took probably our contract would say, I'm going to say, if somebody paid us if a political party paid us $100,000 and it was found out by the public, I don't think our contract would allow that. I'm guessing. I'm not sure.
We would be crossing a number of lines.
Call our agent, see if it is. But let's say we could see if we can take it. And if we get it, he doesn't get a cut.
Yeah.
But even if we had done nothing illegal, if it was found out that, these guys are taking $100,000 every year from Bernie Sanders.
Nobody cares about your $100,000. That's the problem.
We were blackmailing him because we found out he just became a billionaire.
Yeah, right.
So it would be illegal.
Right. What I wonder is the converse, like Jay Leno when he went and did the Corvette thing with Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a really nice car here. Hey, where'd you get all the money? That would have been one critical moment.
You do that, and all I see is his jaw.
These cars they're very expensive, you know.
When you do that, I just see his jaw.
I'm just asking a question. You could have asked, Jay.
I was watching. It was Joe Rogan on with some comedian. They were both doing Jay Leno. It was the same thing like that.
Yeah, I was just curious about how you got the car. Get out, Jay. You're going to walk back to the house now.
Illegal influence peddling.
Yeah, right. How's your son Hunter doing? Shut up, Jay.
I can't wait for the new show, Vice President in Car Getting Bribes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I would think that if you want to try and get ahead of this, the old playbook is very simple. We did it off the cuff, but that's not what's happening with Kirby and Jean-Pierre. They're really horrible at their job, both of them.
Yep. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Red Eye Radio. Got to stop laughing. He's Eric Harley, not Gary McNamara.
Hey, just one more question there, Mr. Vice President. What's your favorite late night show? This is not going to be the end of the questions from the media. They may not ask the questions in the room with Jean-Pierre. But the problem that the administration has is both Kirby and Jean-Pierre are, as we mentioned, horrible at their jobs, but also that the liberal media isn't getting their talking points from them. So they kind of already feel abandoned, and I don't think they're looking for the answers inside that room.
I've never seen a White House spokesperson so blown away by a question which was so obvious was coming after that poll came out.
Right.
Because that poll's been out for over a week.
Right. Yeah, the first thing you do is try and disarm that question, and you did a horrible job. You did quite the opposite.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Oh, as we now enter June. Wow.
Yeah, I said that earlier.
Oh.
Yeah.
I wasn't listening to you.
No. I'm sorry. What'd you say?
I was driving around the other day, and I was thinking about one thought I always have after Memorial Day. And I think it was when I believe I was a senior in high school. And I remember Memorial Day ending, and it was like, oh, boy, now exams are coming up. And I remember my father, who was on my case, telling me that I had to study. You need to study. You need to get your homework done. You need to study. You got your exams coming up. I just remember the thought in my head here, 50 years later. That was a half a century ago. That even seems more when you say a half a century, doesn't it? So.
Yeah, no, it does. It also doesn't sound very modern when you put the word 100 between 19 and whatever year you're born. I was at the doctor's office. Phlebotomist comes by and says, can you confirm your birthday? And I said, yeah, blah, 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 blah. 1966. And he started laughing. Younger guy, I said, now see, it sounds a lot older when you say 1960. Back in 1966.
But I remember it wasn't dark out yet, but I remember it was a cloudy day. And for some reason, I remember sitting in my driveway saying, I've got to go in and study.
Yeah.
For the exams. And I went, I just hate this. And as that thought was happening, I went, oh, yeah, but after this, I'm done with high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. And never again, I've got to find a profession where there's no studying and no homework.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, that didn't work out, did it?
No, it did not.
That didn't work out at all.
Well, no, it was one of the first things I thought of because I started radio right out of high school. I was 18. I was like, oh, man, this is going to be a breeze. It's going to be a breeze. Check this out. Look, I'm going to get paid to do what I was doing at home. I mean, it's not much, but I'm going to get paid to do what I was doing at home. Just put a record on. By the way, to the hipsters, we were playing vinyl because
we had to.
Vinyl was all we had. I mean, we did have carts, which were kind of like 8-tracks. But you really didn't want to put the songs on cart if you could avoid it. Man, I hated those carts. I really did.
I remember losing it one time when one jammed, and I ripped it out and threw it against the wall, and it broke into a million pieces.
I used to, because,
For people that don't know, carts are, basically it's like a 8-track.
Yeah, short for cartridge, and as I mentioned, it's a 8-track like little. It was actually a little larger than an 8-track, but it was you just plug it in and hit play. And the thing is that when you work in a small town, the budget is such that you have to build your own carts. I had to build carts.
Oh yeah, so did I. Yeah,
you put them on there, and okay, this is how much. You put 5.5 minutes worth of tape for a 5-minute cart.
Just think, though. We gave our explanation to give the definition of a cart based on an 8-track where anybody under the age of 40 doesn't know what an 8-track is.
No, 8-tracks are cool again.
Oh, are they cool again? Really?
Yeah.
Are there 8-track players?
Somebody broke into my old truck the other day and left me some 8-tracks. Yeah, they're hip again. Hipsters moved on from vinyl to 8-tracks.
I was asked that question in Florida. Hey, do you have any vinyl? Yeah.
No.
Well, what's the latest releases you've gotten? No, I have vinyl from the 70s. I haven't bought any.
Yeah. No, my wife and I do. We have a turntable. We buy new vinyl all the time. But, and it's way too expensive. It's way overpriced. But they don't produce as many, so it's not the same price as when we bought it. But the new trend actually is cassette tapes.
Why?
I don't know. You're going to need a pencil, though.
I know. I thought about that.
Kids,
you need a pencil.
You're asking yourself, well, why do we need a pencil? What are we going to write on it with? Just trust me. Doesn't even have to be a sharpened pencil. You're going to need a pencil.
But there was nothing more frustrating on the planet than when your car cassette player would start eating the tape.
Oh, yeah.
And you could hear it start, and there was nothing you could do, and you pressed eject, and there it came out, and there was the tape still inside the contraption. Oh, my vehicle. Mm-hmm. I mentioned last week that I got it inspected. My 20-year-old vehicle has a cassette deck in it.
Yeah.
So that's really, I'm trying to think of, isn't it amazing how now there's no cassette decks, there's no CD players, there's, they assume everything you're listening to is digital off your phone.
Yeah, I don't, let's see here. I don't have a CD player. My wife's new car doesn't have a CD player.
No. And my new vehicle's 5 years old already.
I have a ton of DVDs, and I have a DVD player in the house. It is not hooked up to anything. Because everything now that I own that I bought on DVD, I now own on digital. I bought it on digital. I can watch it. And it's, it's only a handful of movies, but things like Tombstone, Godfather, those movies that I wanted to own.
Yeah, I probably have DVDs, a couple of hundred, concerts and everything else. I have VCR tapes.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is my radio shows from the 90s.
Yeah.
Because I would record, that's back when, we're always looking for a job. And so I actually put my radio shows, I would record them on I would just, remember the GE Super Radio?
Oh, yeah.
I had a GE Super radio that I hooked up and fed into my VCR player. Mm-hmm. And the VCR player would kick on right when I came on the air, and it would go off, and you had a 6-hour tape, and it was the audio on the old VCR players was digital, so the quality was superb.
Yeah.
I probably have, I don't know, I'm going to guess 300 VCRs of old television shows, news shows that I did, panel discussion shows that I did. I haven't looked at them. I mean, they've been packed away for 25 years. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I look at the boxes, I'm like, I got to get rid of them. I'm not.
Yeah.
It's like nobody's ever going to care about listening to my old local shows, including me. Mm-hmm. So I just used to throw it all out, and I just haven't done it yet.
I have a couple of things saved.
And you can save, I could save some of the video, but I'm just like, why? I'm never going to watch it.
The things that I saved, Loretta Lynn left me a voicemail one time, and her voice was just so adorable, and she was so kind, and it just naturally as a person, and I thought, okay, I got to save it. So I saved it. I don't know why. I don't know. I've never really played it for anyone. I don't even think I have a player. It's actually on digital audio tape and cassette. I don't have either of those available to me. I'd have to buy a cassette player.
Yeah, I still have a VCR. It's packed away, my old, from 25 years ago.
I have a combo VCR DVD player somewhere.
I do have old TV commercials from TV or radio stations that I work from, advertising my show. Mm-hmm. And I believe I do have a panel discussion show that I was on that I recorded in Rockford, Illinois. When I worked, I was part of a panel discussion show in Rockford, Illinois, and it was the afternoon of the O.J. chase. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, the chase hadn't happened yet. When I left after we did the show, we were talking about O.J. because he was a felon at that time. Mm-hmm. Or, he was not a felon, but he was, what do they call it? A wanted person.
Yeah.
They
right.
put out the,
it was a suspect.
The suspect, yes. And so we knew about it, so we were talking about that and then other political issues too. And then when I left, I'll never forget that, because I left and I went back home and, well, actually, before I went to do that, I signed to go back to Buffalo to be a talk show host.
Mm-hmm.
Right before I went to do that show. And then I went back home, and when I turned on the TV, it was radio on they were talking about the Bronco chase.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then when I got home, the Bronco chase was on. I remember calling my father, and we didn't say anything. We're just on the phone together going, can you believe this?
I was
that would be cool. That would be cool just to watch that once, but I'm just not the kind of person that goes back. I never really took photographs. Now I take it because I have got the phone. I never carried a camera around with me and never wanted to. I really never took a lot of pictures of anything in my entire life. It's funny because almost all my radio pictures that I have, people have sent to me that know I do this show, and they say, hey, I used to work with you at this place. Here's a picture of you. So all the pictures I have of me, anything in my radio career, I really didn't take anything. And I didn't keep anything because I just didn't care. I've just never looked back. I've always been. Now, it's cool to see it. It's cool to see somebody had a picture of me, with as nerdy as I could possibly be, being the biggest dweeb ever with hair flowing all over the place, sitting in the hallway of a radio station holding a copy of Radio and Records magazine.
Yeah, I was at a station, and they featured us on the cover of Hits magazine, which was pretty common in radio. I mean, they just did the rounds of the stations, and one month we were the cover photo. I think I have that somewhere. I think, maybe.
So I guess, that's the age I'm at. All right, why is this around? Does anybody care? I don't. Throw it out. And I just haven't done it yet. I go, well, I'll think about it. It's not taking up too much room in the walk-in closet, but it's a couple of big boxes of I have VCRs.
Yeah, I have my DVDs is one large tote, and who knows?
My CDs, and I've probably got, I don't know. What I put everything on digital about 15 years ago. And I think I was doing the show here because I talked about it. Took me over a month. I mean, I was doing it 6-7 hours a day, taking the CDs and just, downloading them onto my computer. I still have that desktop. And I downloaded everything onto that, and then I downloaded onto another hard drive. And now I keep, I've got it on my laptop, and I've got probably 7,000 songs on my phone. And those are all packed away. I probably kept 100 of the CDs out, and I'll probably pack them because nobody comes over and listens to, and I don't listen to them. And it's like, pack them away. It's like, well, what do you do with that? I'm not throwing out CDs.
Yeah, and with streaming, I don't possess any music other than what I had on CD or what we have on vinyl. And the vinyl is kind of like a hobby thing, too. There's a cool, very good record store less than a mile from my house. I mean, it's huge. And they have everything. I mean, my problem going in there is that you just don't want to. There's no way to go through it all.
Wasn't a couple months ago, I saw a news story that said vinyl sales are now outselling CDs?
Yeah. All the artists now are putting out some vinyl. All the major artists are putting out some vinyl. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's some,
866-90 Red Eye.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on compliance, safety, accountability. At the core of compliance, safety, accountability, or CSA, is FMCSA's Safety Measurement System, or SMS. The SMS uses 7 safety improvement categories called BASICs to examine a carrier's on-road performance and potential crash risk. The categories of basics are unsafe driving, hours of service compliance, driver fitness, controlled substances and alcohol, vehicle maintenance, hazardous materials compliance, and crash indicator. Under FMCSA's old measurement system, carrier performance was assessed in only 4 broad categories. Violations or crashes that have occurred within the previous 24 months of performance data are included in CSA calculations, but more recent events are weighted more heavily than older events. Violations or crashes that have happened within the past 6 months are weighted 33% more than events that occurred 6 to 12 months ago. And violations that are older than a year are weighted 66% less than recent violations. This allows a carrier to improve their CSA score gradually as they see fewer and fewer violations. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. A story out there that Meta has threatened to pull news posts from Facebook, Instagram, and Instagram if California bill becomes law. That's the law that would charge you, that would have a journalism user fee for any stories, even if somebody posted a story. You'd have to pay a journalism fee for it, and they're like, sorry, it's all gone. That means anybody who posts a news story on Facebook or Instagram, it would be gone. And I'm assuming Twitter would do the same thing because they're not going to pay that user fee. If that happens to Twitter, what good are they?
Right. Well,
I mean, Facebook, I can see surviving without it because it's more like, you know, almost like a family reunion kind of thing. But Twitter is so news-driven.
Yeah. Yeah, if that were to happen, it would just, I don't know what Twitter would do.
Yeah, we'll tell you what that whole law is in California coming up. And the other story out there, Trump, exclusive from CNN, Trump captured on tape talking about classified document he kept after leaving the White House. Now, remember, Trump said he declassified everything. They've got him on tape in 2021 talking about how he's got a classified document on, which was one that was confiscated, how he's got a classified document about a potential attack on Iran.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That's not good.
That isn't good at all.
That isn't good.
No, not going to help his case at all.
Nope.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, I love this story. Boy, there's so many angles to hit on. Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, has threatened to remove news posts from those social media platforms should Assembly Bill 886, dubbed the California Journalism Preservation Act, become law. The measure, authored by Assemblywoman Buffy Wicks, a Democrat from Oakland, would require social media companies, including Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, to pay a monthly journalism usage fee to be determined through an arbitration process based on the social media's platform's monthly ad revenue. The money would go into fund for payments to companies that produce the content, Media companies would be required under the proposed law to spend at least 70% of that money on journalists and support staff. How can the government tell you where to...
This has so much of the really not going to go anywhere quality to it. It's insane. But it is California.
The local newspapers have hemorrhaged advertising revenue and staff with the rise of social media giants. By the way, they were before social media giants, too. The Halloween of, we knew it because if you were a two-newspaper town, by the time you got to 1980, you had a lot of those two newspaper towns. One newspaper was gone.
Yeah. And the morning edition, afternoon or evening edition, it was one or the other.
Yep. Local newspapers have hemorrhaged advertising revenue and staff with the rise of social media giants. The Halloween of local news outlets has weakened the civic fabric of many communities, proponents of the bill say, creating news deserts. Also, it's hurting the liberal activists.
We want to, just so we could be clear, for those under the age of 40, a newspaper is what you use to pack your stuff when you get evicted. I'm not sure if they know that.
And any young people out there have bird cages? It's also useful there.
No, you would never hold a bird in a cage under the age of 40. That is so not happening.
Is that
now they may have one flying around their apartment.
Is that unwoke?
Yeah.
Okay.
They may have one flying around their apartment pooping on everything, but not in a cage.
The parent company of Facebook argued that news publishers chose to put their content on social media platform and that substantial consolidation in California's local news industry largely predates the wide use of Facebook. Even now, the company said news is not a significant portion of most users' Facebook feeds, making up less than 3% of what people see. If the Journalism Preservation Act passes, we will be forced to remove news from Facebook and Instagram rather than pay into a slush fund that primarily benefits big out-of-state media companies under the guise of aiding California publishers, according to a meta statement shared with the Sacramento Bee on Wednesday. The tech industry has rebelled against the bill, with the center-left tech-funded Chamber of Progress releasing an analysis that showed that the biggest chunk would go to the major media companies out there.
Well, what if a user shares a story, let's say, from the New York Post about, let's say, a laptop. Let's say about a laptop that is owned allegedly by the son of, let's say, a sitting president.
Well, then they would ban that, but that would have nothing to do with money.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope I've clarified that for you.
Okay. All right.
I'm sure Twitter would do the same.
Why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense at all.
By the way, this is it's almost like a de facto PBS.
Yeah.
Is it not?
Yeah.
Let's fund. Let's have government funding the media with now. Not only will we fund the media, but we'll tell them where they have to spend those funds.
Yeah.
You need to hire more political activists on the left. Seriously, am I wrong on that?
Yeah, no.
Am I wrong to be suspicious that this is really being done in order to keep the liberal media, the mainstream media, afloat? Look, the damage to the mainstream media was done on their own.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that decided to become political activists.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that decided we're going to censor. They're the ones that decided we're not really going to be journalists. And now here comes California to help bail them out.
Yeah, and then the requirement to put 70% of the money must be used. Well, okay, when you're getting into these details, the media companies would have to essentially use that to fund jobs in journalism.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd like to challenge it and say that's not journalism. You're saying journalism. Well, if you hire Catherine Herridge, that's one thing.
Okay.
Michael Schellenberger, that's one thing. And because that's when they use that, the words in law should have a meaning, then let's define them clearly for the sake of the law and the enforcement of the law. And that's the ludicrous part of this. It runs in so many circles and bounces into so many of their own walls that the left built that this thing has no hope at all of passing.
But I look at this and go, well, this is perfect liberalism in 2023. Yeah. We're going to go after these companies. Basically, it's a corporate tax. We're going to go after these companies that we all hate, right? The left all hates all the big tech now, right? Even though they were owned primarily by leftists, we're still going to go after them. We're going to acquire more money, and then we're going to funnel that money back to continue the propaganda machine that has benefited us so greatly.
Yeah.
Am I wrong to be suspicious of that? That that's the real reason? After everything we've seen? Here's the thing. We can come up with any analogy now and go, 10 years ago we'd say, okay, that's a little bit over the top. And now it's like after everything we've seen, think about it with the censoring of the laptop. When you think about that in American history, nothing like that's ever been done, ever.
No.
Where you had everybody band together to say, number one, we saw what the intelligence agencies did. We saw what the government, what the Democrats did. We saw what the media did. And it was the culture of censorship. We're going to censor stories we don't like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
sure.
then you see what happened with COVID. The biggest censorship activities maybe in American history were bluntly done by the Democratic Party and the media that supports them. So am I wrong to be suspicious that this is all about keeping a propaganda outlet of the Democratic Party afloat because they've been losing money because people don't like their activist ways?
Well, the bill includes Google as well as Facebook. Now, Facebook has come out and said we're not going to participate if that becomes law. They wouldn't be able to afford to. But it would, according to the reports, I haven't read the letter of the bill, but according to the reports, it means that if you post a story, if you share a story, and it lands on Facebook, Facebook has to pay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And Google, oh my gosh. Then Google News basically has to hand over a percentage of their earnings to these media corporations. They rely on Google to get the word out. They rely on Google to put these stories out. So if there's let's say they'll use you can call it clickbaiting or leading headline that gets you to click, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, I'm at a paywall. Or I only have 3 more stories that I can read from this website before I hit a paywall. They use that to bring people in, get interested in the types of stories that they publish in order to bring in more subscriptions.
Yeah,
it is a promotional tool on every level when they do it.
They're actually using that would be their argument I would make. They're actually using us as a free marketing tool.
That's it.
Yeah.
And Facebook a few years ago said that we're going to start allowing these media groups to actually publish directly onto Facebook. Now, they changed that, and the dynamics on the algorithm at Facebook have changed drastically. I spoke to one publisher, editor, who told me that the views they used to get on Facebook before were massive, and now they get very little on the stories they put there. It is almost nothing. They don't put a lot into Facebook anymore because they've changed their entire algorithm. I can't tell you specifically because we don't publish stories like that. But this was a magazine publisher, who does news. They're not getting anything. Well, nonetheless, you do it to promote your news organization. That's what you do. You want to put it out there. My gosh, if this were to take effect, I mean, if it were to cover Google, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all of it, and it became law, then they would have no choice. Because they can't say, well, we're just going to ban it in California. They're not going to do that. Now, I guess they could, but it would be expensive. They're not going to do that. Based on where the user is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that, well, now I've got a VPN that I use. So you don't know whether I'm in California or in Texas. So I'm sure the law would, if they're going to go this far with the law would cover that, which means that those companies would say, well, sorry, then we're not going to publish the news. Tell me that this isn't an effort to shut down the media, but shut down everything except for their own propaganda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's exactly what this is.
Government has no business in this at all.
It absolutely does not.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Apparently, some people have misinterpreted what we said when we read an article last half hour, about 35 minutes ago from CNN. Trump captured on tape talking about classified document he kept after leaving the White House. We've had a few people that said the president can declassify anything. That isn't the point of this story. The point of the story is Trump said this isn't arguing whether he declassified it or not. You know, that was up for debate as, you know, when he left the White House. This is in the summer. He has said afterwards that he declassified everything when he left. Everything that he left with, he declassified. This has him in the summer of 2021 after he is out of office, apparently, according to the CNN story, stating that he has classified material that he is holding about a potential attack on Iran. And that's where his critics say they have him. I don't know what's on the tape. I'm not making any judgments. I'm just reading the story to you. But if that is legit, that's going to be a problem for Trump.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it will be.
Because apparently he's claiming it was not declassified in the video, is what the claim is.
Yeah.
After saying that he declassified everything when he left the White House. That would be a problem for him.
Yeah.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.